All right. Good to go. All right. Tēnā koutou katoa. Thanks everyone joining. This is a session on a how-to guide on trail cameras for the purposes of monitoring pests or native animals in our environment. Just want to have a big shout out to Kiwi Coast for facilitating this Zooey, and on behalf of Predator Free, we're honoured to be invited along and to give a piece on this amazing bit of technology. Basically, the session is on utilising this new technology to further understand pest and game populations. Next slide, please. So my name is Zac. I'm a biosecurity officer at the Predator Free Whangarei. Currently working on a project in the Whangarei Heads for a possum eradication across 9,000 hectares. The current project uses trail cameras en masse to detect the presence and abundance of possums at a landscape scale. My use of cameras in previous projects includes tracking and trapping pig sounders at Point Elizabeth outside of Greymouth in the South Island, chasing rats in commercial industrial premises during my time as a private pest control technician. I was tasked by the City Council to determine what was removing the flowering roses at the Hamilton Gardens. With the use of a strategically placed trail camera, it turned out to be a possum. Next slide, please. What we will cover today. So the benefits of these cameras over traditional methods. We'll talk about a couple camera models. One that we use at Heads as a standard model example, plus a cellular model that I've used in past projects, just to give you an idea of their functions and a rough ballpark of pricing. Tips and tricks on how to avoid some of the most common problems that arise, such as false triggers, max distance for your target animal, what is a focal feature, and what lure device we use, the rake of a tree, the angle of the camera, all important notes there. We'll touch on data management and how we can utilize computer software to categorize the images to visually display appealing and informative results. Next slide, please. So the traditional methods such as rat tracking indices, while absolutely has their place, and it's almost a prerequisite for a lot of pest control operations to go ahead, can be inherently misleading. The presence absence speaks nothing of the volume or sheer quantity of rats, while an image is photographic evidence of, such as this image here, 3 rats in one image. It would only count as one rat presence in the tracking tunnel. Image speaks 1,000 words, so an image can tell a story that only sometimes a 5-page report can. So it sums up quite a bit. The interactions of these animals with their own kin, interactions with other species, with natural objects or man-made instruments has dramatically advanced our knowledge of general animal behaviour with the application of these non-invasive surveillance technology, basically using cameras to just see them caught in the act. The ability to identify individuals and imagery of areas you periodically survey is now possible for some species, i.e. in this image here, the pigs at Point Elizabeth with distinct markings, we're able to follow their locational patterns and determine how often they frequented in an area. Doesn't show it here, but this big sow does have a big black spot, and I've seen her move all around the peninsula there. So next slide, please. So 2 models, and there's obviously a plethora of cameras and everyone trying to sell their stuff out there, but just 2 I'm going to touch on. The Browning Dark Ops, this is the one we're using out at Heads. Standard model is great point and shoot camera, basically, and while prices are steep, so I've put them in here, buying in bulk and on special, you can find a lot cheaper. The UO Vision Glory Cloud is basically everything this other camera and more. Working off a cellular cloud network, these cameras work more like a phone that, while dependent on how you've set it up, actually transfers the photos, pics from the field to an app on your phone or to a website for your laptop or PC in either real time or periodic intervals. Next slide. So this slide here gives you a real life example of the settings we use to capture still frames of possums in the project area. In saying that, these settings have allowed us to capture everything and everything that moves in an efficient manner. So we're catching stock, mice, kiwi, possums, everything in between. Service intervals can be anywhere from a couple of weeks to many months at a time. The benefit of using video footage over still frames is marginal for the purpose of our project, as the battery drain and memory usage are far outweighed. Also, models with LCD screens are more, they've got quite a bit of hype. Those tiny pretend screens in the pouring rain are not fun, nor that waterproof. Next slide, please. This next section I call tips and tricks, and it follows the trials and errors we have made in the past and compiled them together for your convenience to hopefully ease the frustrations you might find in the field. False triggers are when the camera captures images of anything other than your desired target. While some are unavoidable, it is in your best interest to be aware of things like sunstrike, the orientation of the camera into the rising or setting sun, and splashback, the placing the camera too low to the ground, causing mud debris to flick up onto the lens during heavy rainfall events. Over the next few slides, I'll have short video clips of my colleague Ollie explaining in the field some of the common issues that we come across. If you don't mind, Adele, just clicking on the video there. And you'll have to pause it once it finishes, it continues.
Measure up your spot, so you're thinking about where is the sun rising and setting from, because excessive sunstrike will cause you an awful lot of false triggers. You have to
pause that there.
Measure up your spot, so you're thinking about.
Yeah, it doesn't work very well, the clip, but it's all right. A couple of other points here is the wind and motion of anything in shot will cause trigger events. And so it's paramount to remove any small vegetation that will move or sway in the wind. So cut grass around it, rake leaves away, and get the sticks out of shot, because that's going to continually cause false triggers. Also, you want to have your camera face to an upslope of a hill, if applicable, to narrow your field of vision. These cameras can detect movement from over 100 feet away, so best to orientate your camera to have a focal feature of only a few meters away. Next slide, please.
You have to look about the exposure of your spot, so you're thinking about where is the sun rising and setting from, because
did it go one too many? Sorry, I'm stopping and starting your video. So is this one too many, or back a slide?
Yeah, no, this is good. Yep, speaking of distance, the max distance you want your camera to be from your focal feature or lure is where your animal will be in your scope of capture. Now, those are lingo words that I'll explain in the next slides. So basically, you want 2 to 3 meters for small game, possums, mussels, and rodents, and around 6 meters for your large game, your deer, stock, pig. Play clip, please.
In consideration, the animal that you're trying to capture as well. So this example here, it would be about the maximum distance that we would like to have between the camera and the ALD, the lure device, or the lure dispenser. So this is a couple of meters, anywhere really from 1 to 2.5 to 3 meters. It would be really kind of our maximum. In consideration.
Next slide, please.
In consideration.
What Ollie mentioned there was indeed our automatic lure dispenser. Shown in this clip is what we use to lure the possums out of their nightly routine to come suss out this tasty number. Play the clip, please.
This is mayonnaise, long life mayonnaise, every 24 hours. We've got to make sure that it actually comes down onto a surface, not just into the ground. You want it high enough that it's not going to get splashback during heavy rainfall. And a lot of this activity you can see here is already from rats and possum activity. These are a great tool. Just putting our camera out in the environment without a focal feature to bring or lure the animals in is much more hit and miss.
So pause that. Oh, cool. Oh, no, okay. Sorry, not the next slide. Yeah. So the point he made there at the end is really clarifying that for the purpose of our project, we are trying to draw these animals out of hiding and enable us to really detect what is in the environment instead of a natural capture of animals just meandering past. Next slide, please. The rake of a tree is the angle it grows on, and since most things you are looking to capture is on 4 legs, the camera needs to be attached to a tree or post that is angled slightly downwards, again, to narrow your scope of capture to a focal feature. You can also pack the top of the camera with a chalk or stick to imitate this. Play the clip, please.
So this one is clearly already set up, but I guess a couple of points to think about is that after we've tightened up the strap to the tree, we always make sure that the tail is wrapped away so it's not going to come and interfere and give you a false trigger. Frequently, depending on the shape of the tree, it's always nice to have a bit of a rake to capture your focal point at the base of the lure dispenser. Just something to keep in mind. A forward raking tree or something to pack it out to get it to focus down is important, but remember, you've got to be able to get your battery pack out as well.
Let's pause that clip.
This one is.
So I mentioned here that the bow tie is the shape of the camera captures its footage. So it's narrow from top to bottom, but wide across. It's a general feature of all trail cameras I've found. Next slide, please.
So this one is clearly.
You're challenging me here, swapping between videos and slides and pausing.
I expected to, yeah, this is the right one. I expected to click it myself at first. So yeah, sorry about that. Little technical difficulties. SD cards. So SD cards are removable storage devices that hold the images on the camera. Unless you get a massive size card, such as the one shown, 128 gigs, you'll be needing to change out the card every 1 to 2 months. So a minimum of 16 gigs. But yeah, if you are to be capturing video footage, I would go with something larger, or else you'll fill up 500 cameras in a night or two and you'll be out there every week. While servicing, it is a good time to not only change the batteries, but to bring an SD card reader or laptop where you can check the footage you're capturing to ensure that you're still capturing the focal point and hasn't been knocked around by stock or what have you. So yeah, definitely watch your cameras around stock. Next slide, please. I've missed a slide here. Sorry, just missed my notes. 1 second.
We'll need you to keep moving on, Zac, because we are getting.
Yeah. So yeah, very quickly. Wow. Yeah, very quickly. We utilize image classification software Classifier, which will be released to the public via Zero Invasive Predators soon, to group images based on species identified. It's a fun and easy exercise that pumps out Excel spreadsheets with all the data, cells, etc., in the right place for further data manipulation and interpretation. Next slide, please. Using GIS services, you can then display your results on an attractive graphs or maps that strikingly show where and how and what of your purposes of your project. Here is a heat mapping of possum detection in the southern peninsula of Whangarei Heads. The darker the squares, the higher the density or frequency of possums detected. This can be displayed for any animal capture from the camera. Next slide. Including Kiwi in a very engaging way. These are wild Kiwi doing what wild Kiwi do best. Thank you.
Okay, I don't think we can share that, Adele. We'll have to take that out of the presentation. Privacy. Thank you, Zac. That was really amazing. Hopefully it answered a lot of people's questions. Because we've moved Zac forward, we will go to lunch a bit later. So hopefully that's all right. Andy, I'm not too sure, some questions came. Oh, here we go. What questions have you got there, Andy? Okay. Can't see Andy.
Okay. Rechargeable batteries, what type do you use, Zac?
Yeah, we use the EnviroPro. I think it's a Panasonic one. There's a black and a white one. One has higher voltage than the other. They both do a good job. They literally, we had one camera that was left out for 4 months. It was kind of missed after it was initially set up, and it was still capturing images, had about 7,000 images of rats running past, but it still had battery charge. So yeah, Panasonic rechargeables, ePro, I think they call them.
Okay, there's a few questions that are coming in now. We'll have a minute or so to go through some of those. Have you got a recommended field card reader? And is theft of cameras a problem? Double-ended question.
So the card readers, I'm not sure what the model we've used. I don't believe they're an excessively priced one. We've got a few of them. We've had one or two clap out. Just that it wasn't reading well. Changed the card reader and it worked. So yeah, I just wouldn't say get the bottom of the rung if you're at PB Tech or whatever. Theft of cameras, it could be possible. I know definitely a lot of devices do get stolen if they're near highways or adjacent to property owners that don't want you there. Things like that kind of, not on this project, but that's my understanding of expensive equipment. Generally, they are quite hidden. They've got camouflage. They're not very conspicuous, to be honest. Yeah, we haven't had too much trouble with them. We don't really disclose their location too much, but yeah, they haven't had too much troubles yet for this project.
Cool. Hey, we might have to leave that there. Perhaps, Zac, if you can have a look at the chat questions coming through, you might be able to answer some of those there. It looks like you've generated a bit of interest. Thank you so much for your presentation. I'll just